the Surfers Guild in West Pat, here to shape my very first surfboard with Logan from Eternal Life. What's up, Logan? Alright, he's going to show us how to start.
To shape a single fin egg, 7/6 in length. So the first thing you do when you want to shape a surfboard is you start with a blank, raw piece of foam, right? Blanks have gotten pretty advanced in recent years. They're pretty close. They're called close tolerance blanks because honestly, if you wanted to, you could just glass this and put fins in it and surf it, and it would work. It has rocker already built into it. It has they're bulky, but it has rails. It's thick, it has a foil. You know, it's not just a raw block of foam. It comes with the stringer we want in it. This is a 1/8 inch apple core stringer, which I ordered specifically for this blank. It has a natural rocker built into it. It's a pretty low, moderate rocker, which is good for single fins. This blank, particularly a 710 SP, I use it a lot for shaping single fin mid blades. Pretty neutral, nice rocker, easy to work with. Nice neutral foil. The blank's not too thick. We'll take some volume out of it as we foil it. But it's a really, really good starting space. It cuts down our work a lot. Starting with the right blank is very important. Start with the wrong blank, it can make a shit ton of work for you. Trying to fix things like rocker, trying to take out volume in the right places. Starting with the right blank is key.
And is USA, but are US blanks kind of your go-to for blanks? Is there other companies, or does it not really matter?
They are my go-to. I usually shape with US blanks. They're all made in the USA, Orange County. They're all, which I like a lot.
And you just do PU, right? You don't do any epoxy?
Yep. I don't usually use EPS. I think I've shaped a few EPS boards, but it is not my preferred method for my boards personally. It shapes differently. It's totally different kind of process, kind of beast working with it. I like PU foam. Like the way it cuts. US blanks works really well. This is a blue density blank, which is their stock middle weight density. It's not too light, it's not too heavy. You can go down in density if you want to a light density like a shortboard performance density, or up to a heavier density like for longboard or guns.
Is that only going to affect the weight, or is that also going to affect how easily pressure dings and
both?
Okay.
Yeah, both. That's a good question because when we're shaping the blank, when we're foiling it, or the act of foiling it, meaning removing foam and creating the distribution of volume throughout the board, we take most of our foam off the bottom. We try not to take a ton off the deck because the more foam we take off, the softer the blank gets. If you take too much foam off the deck, it can pressure dent very easily because the foam gets really soft.
So it's, I'm hearing you right, it's almost like an eggshell where the center is a little bit softer.
Totally. Yeah, very much. Right now it has a very protective, hard shell on it. You can throw this off a truck and it wouldn't hurt it too bad right now. But when it's finished, that's a whole different fucking story.
Awesome. All right, so being new to shaping, never shaped anything in my life before. All of my experience is basically using Solares when I lose my board in the rocks. Where do I start, man? Do I want to chop off the tail, chop off the nose? What am I doing here?
So there's two different ways you can go about starting. Some people will template their board out first on the raw blank like this. They'll lay the template out, draw it out, cut the template out of the board right now. You can do that. The other way to do it is to foil your blank first, meaning remove most of the volume you need off the top and bottom before you even use your template, before you even touch the template. And then template it after that. That's the method I prefer. So before I even use a template, I foil the blank. Take volume out of the top, take volume out of the bottom, get it pretty much to the thickness that I want, and then I template it and cut out my outline. So that's where we're going to start. We'll start with foiling the blank, which means
excited, man.
We're going to start with the planer, and I'll give you a brief overview of the planers. Right? Planers. Surfboard and planers go really well together. Using a planer when you are hand shaping the surfboard really increases your consistency, the accuracy of your results. Getting good with a planer is essential for hand shaping. advice to people out there who want to shape, like practice with a planer again and again and again and again and again and again. Do it over and over and over. It's all repetition and practice and muscle memory and getting used to how the tool feels in your hands. There's no substitute for practice. You just have to keep doing it over and over and over until the planer feels like an extension of your body, really. This is the first planer I ever used. I started out with maybe 7-8 years ago. It is a Hitachi P20 Hitachi P20 ST modified surfboard planer, meaning it has modifications to it specifically for surfboard shaping. It has a higher RPM motor in it. It has an accelerated exhaust vent. It has a on-the-fly depth grip adjustment to change the depth of your cut. It has a trigger lock. There's a longer power cable, etc., etc. It's a lighter planer. It's a lighter weight planer compared to something like the Skill. It's a lot lighter. It's a lot less powerful, but it can be useful in areas where the Skill is too big, like for smaller boards, for shorter boards, for rail bands, for tighter cuts in areas. I've seen some people are really insane with the Skill, like who are like been using it for like 50 years. Like I've seen videos of like Bob McTavish like foiling boards with a Skill, and he's fucking one-handing fucking rail bands. He's like, I mean, literally, he's just like one-handing rail bands like this, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, that's hard to do. It's not easy to do. That is a lifetime of muscle memory to do that. So yeah, Hitachi Skill, I just got this. I sent it out to the East Coast. I bought it. Actually, my dad bought it from a guy in Arizona. There's an old dude who was a carpenter. He retired a long time ago. I had this in his garage for like 40 years.
Okay, what's brand new?
He used it like twice. My dad bought it for me as a present. And then I sent it out to the East Coast, and I had it modified by a guy, shout out New England Chair Company. What is that? Am I doing that? Did I check? Just make sure I'm not fucking up Phil's shout out. Phil Russo, right?
Yeah, so you share your...
Yeah, Phil Russo. Phil Russo, New England Chair Company. Shout out Phil, the New England Chair Company. He specializes in refurbishing old planers, specifically old Skills. He's absolutely amazing at it. So I got the planer and I sent it out to him, and he completely refurbished it for me. Put all new bearings, belts, blades. We have this, it's called a McNamara spiral cutter head on it. So it has a totally different type of blade setup than it originally had, that the Hitachi has. The Hitachi has two straight blades like this. This has spiral, like 8 spiral cutting head square blades. Crazy. Put a new power cord on it, cleaned everything. She switched out, has this effortlessly buttery, smooth depth grip adjustment. Goes from 0 to 1/8 inch cut. This thing's insane. It cuts, you can barely even see the lines on the board when you cut with it. Like, it's so well tuned and balanced. It's insane. So we'll use both. There's no comparison. Like, this is an insane planer. This makes this feel like a toy. However, I can't say that it's better than that. It's just a different, totally different feeling. I still really like using this, just for different things. They're just kind of different stuff.
And for those of us who've never owned a hand planer, what's the high limit cost on this? These didn't used to be hard to find. They're hard to find now because everyone is now a surfboard shaper. I mean, even more so since COVID happened. Everyone's now a surfboard shaper, and so they're sold out everywhere. I've seen them kind of pop up for $400 or $500. I think I got mine. It was like $300. I haven't even seen them for sale new anywhere in years. Like, they're just hard to find now. This, my dad paid maybe $600 for it. You see them on Craigslist up to $1,000, $1,200. I mean, on eBay, depends. And some aren't even in good shape. You know, anywhere from $600 to $1,000 for a plant. But then you have to send it out and get it rebuilt, and that's where the real cost. Like, I think I paid $1,200 to have it rebuilt. So almost $2,000 to have this like in this condition. Is that too much money? I don't know. I know it's a really good planer that will basically last literally longer than I would be alive, probably. So that's cool. That's cool. But yeah, there's also other planers you can get that are less expensive.
Makita. I think it's Makita. They make I think a cordless planer, which is also, I've heard is pretty cool. I've not used it. Battery powered.
Yeah.
That's
But
somewhat
also weight a
expensive.
little bit too.
It can, and the battery dies. Obviously, that's the problem. I definitely prefer a power cord. These are not going to be hooked up to any vacuum system, so dust and foam is going to be flying everywhere. And if you get foam dust in your eye, you will never forget it. I promise you that. When you get foam dust in your eye, you will never forget it. Not if. When. Not if, but when. Okay, so we're going to do this. We'll start with this. So technically, I have a surfboard like mentoring, shaping, teaching program, right? Which is called the Community Adventure Program. And I named it the Community Adventure Program because I thought it kind of sounded like a prison work release program, which I love. Like I love like vague corporate like acronym names. Community Adventure Program. Like it sounds like something you would see people wearing on the back of their jumpsuits when they're cleaning up trash on the freeway, which I love. I mean, not that I don't love people incarcerated like that, but I do love vague acronyms. So we're gonna do, this is going to be, we'll call it a Community Adventure Program for it. Love it. So we're gonna say, what do you want me to write? Cap with what? West Path? Cap with
Surfers Guild.
Cap with the Guild.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write Cap with the Guild.
Yeah.
First base considerations. So I like to dedicate, each board when I start shaping it. I kind of like to dedicate it, not necessarily someone's name, but like, with just an intention or like whatever I'm feeling or into at the moment when I shape it. Just for me, just so that's like in the board. So this is Community Adventure Program with the Guild, right? Boom.
Sweet.
Sweet, right?
So, I'm gonna turn this down.
Okay. I'm right-handed. Hold the planer in my right hand. Trigger, right? Keep one hand on the trigger, and I keep my left hand on the depth adjustment up here at the front. Depth adjustment works. The planer has a shoe here, right? And the depth adjustment slides it back and forth. So right now, when it's at 0 cut, this shoe is flush. This foot is flush with the base here. So it's totally flush, so no blade is exposed. However, when I slide the depth adjustment all the way to 1/8 of an inch, it pulls back this shoe and reveals the blade, and thus it cuts. So you can have the planer on and running at 0, it's not going to cut anything. Okay, it's only when you change the depth while it's moving that it cuts.
And we're going to take a lot off at the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning we're going to do full depth passes, it's called. So we're going to do like 1/8 inch off the top and the bottom, right? So we're going to take full depth at the beginning. Again, I'll do this. We'll measure how thick our blank is in the middle with our calipers. We'll measure the thickness of the blank starting off so we know how much foam we want to remove. I use this blank a lot, so I'm pretty used to removing foam. But you go to the thickest part of the blank and you read it, and you're like, okay, this blank's about 3 1/4 inch thick in the middle, right? And in foiling, I like to take off most of my volume right away. So it's 3 1/4 inches. That means I want to get it down to about 3, unless you want it more foiled.
3/4, but
Okay.
Whatever.
So what happens
I find it
is
a little thin.
we'll take it down to 3 or 2 1/4, or like probably honestly like 2 7/8.
Okay.
And then we'll do that to start with, and then we'll remove more volume later on while we're doing the rest of the shaping. But at the beginning, we'll do a couple passes off the bottom and one off the top to remove volume. So we'll move about 3/8 of an inch total from the board, which will bring us down to about 2 7/8 thickness. Okay. So the way the planer works is I'm gonna start planing on the outside rail, and I'm gonna work my way towards the stringer. I make a cut, and then when I come back the other way, this base stays over what I just cut. And the planer will match the depth of my first cut on the next cut, and so forth and so on. It's like mowing a lawn. You mow the lawn in swipes, and you go over, and you kind of overlap the part you just cut, so you keep going back and forth in rows and rows. You'll see how I did it. I usually hold the planer. I'm usually not planing I'm not planing parallel to the stringer like this. Usually when I'm planing, I'm holding the planer more perpendicular or 45-degree angle to the stringer, so I'm cutting more like this, which gives me a narrower row or a narrower cut. It's not quite so wide. It gives me more control over the depth, the width of my cut.
Okay.
Allows me to cut closer and closer, like in narrower strips. Whereas this is like going to cut a lot out at once, which depending on where I'm cutting on the blank, I do that. Lots of feeling.
Lots of feeling. All right, right? Yeah. Good. Will you grab that white weight? Yeah. Just put it right there. Counterbalance fine. Cool. Rock and roll, ready? Yeah, let's get lucky. Nice cool day in San Diego. It's about 65 degrees in here. It's beautiful. Be a surfboard shaper. All right, here we go. Cuts, like there's hardly any lines on them. Like the lines are very faint. Like it keeps everything so flat and even. It's so nice. I mean, just from going from a Hitachi to this, the balance on this is so much nicer. Like it's so easy to get a really level, clean cut, which to me is very sexy. Okay. All right, you ready to do it? Yeah, so when I start on the rail and work my way over? Yeah, correct. Alright. Yeah, so I usually here, but you gotta move it to the class, right? I move it all the way and then read it. So you don't start with that, though. You start in the yeah, I kind of, yeah, exactly. As I move the planer onto the board, I kind of slide it over the on. Yeah. You're going to start, on the outside rail, like this, and work your way. You have more foam left here. Yep. So try to keep this and this even so you're not crossing the stringer. Okay. Right? So you want to get it down so you can take the stringer all in one cut. So focus on getting rid of this part and then do the stringer all in. Then do the stringer. We just do the whole stringer. Yeah, do the whole stringer all in one. On the first pass, you didn't really cut anything. You didn't really cut anything here. So do the outside rail again. The cut, you had it matched up and then you kept going. Oh, I got you. So now it's uneven. But that's okay. I see what. That's okay. You can fix it. Huh? You make it look easy. Well, I've done it a couple times. Yeah, so basically, you want to shape or plane one side first, then the other side, and the stringer will just kind of come together. Well, you take the string, you can plane one side and then the stringer, and then just keep going. Got it. But yeah, you don't want to keep, if you keep going, you're always going to end up with one side that's lower. Got it. One of the biggest problems in the beginning of learning how to shape is over-shaping, is shaping too much out of a blank. People do it a lot because they don't know when to stop. It's too much. So, yeah, this is just a block. I'm just taking, I'm just leveling off what we did. Just making it flat. This one we don't want to do that. Good ball. I'm just erasing the fender lines here. So we have a smooth surface to draw our template. Just quick, easy catch. Now we're gonna take some volume out of the neck side.
When you get to the nose.
You have to turn the planer a little bit to help it fit the deck rocker.
Got it.
Luckily, there's not a lot of rocker in this planer, so it's not that bad. But I'll show you how I turn the planer a little bit, just to help it fit. Okay.
All right.
Whereas, honestly, you have a good single fin, you can surf it small waves, and when it gets better, when the waves get good, to me, boards like this just get better and better and better. Like, the idea that people save their small boards for when it's big, to me, is completely backwards. Like, when it's big out, you want something with volume, long rail line, paddle power, a concave or something.
All that work, and I feel like we only took off half an inch.
Well, seriously, you might even take off less. But yeah, about half an inch, maybe less probably. It's okay though, you don't need to take off a lot.
Now I know why people couldn't see the boards.
And why people charge, $1,200, $1,400 for a handshaping board. Okay, so I'll give you a little rundown on most commonly used tools when I shape. Handsaw, analog, right?
Yeah, man.
This is what I use to cut my outlines. I cut all my outlines with a handsaw. I don't use, some people use jigsaw, routers even. I like a handsaw. Nice straight blade, gets you a nice straight rail line, straight up and down cut, easy to control, cheap, costs about $10. Great tool. Calipers I use for measuring thickness of the board. Usually I measure thickness when I start, maybe at the end, and that's about it. Don't really measure much thickness. Kind of just feel how it goes. Calipers are great though. Some hard blocks, some different types of blocks for sanding. One is literally just a piece of wood with sandpaper wrapped around it. This is 40 grit sandpaper. You can switch out the grits for different things. Takes down the foam really quick. Makes things level. This is a flex pad, super cool. It's got like a metal grit glued onto this like flexi material. I stole this from someone's shaping bay, but I did it. Like, they tore down their shaping bay, and before I left, I took this. I'm sorry. Someone made this, and it's a really great tool because it flexes to contours on board. It's fucking awesome. I love it. Surfboard. This is called a microplane surfboard. Some people use the big long surfboards. No, I don't really use them. The big long yellow ones. This I like because it's small. I can use it in one hand really, and it has a micro blade on it. This is literally like kitchen supply Williams Sonoma.
Yeah, it looks like a cheese grater.
It's literally a cheese grater. It takes away planer lines and sandpaper lines really well, and it's really fine plane, doesn't gouge the foam. I love the micro surfboard. Love the mini surfboard. Fucking essential. I'm obsessed with
Basically
it.
a mini handheld.
And literally a mini handheld analog planer that I use with one hand that can sculpt foam. It's awesome. David planer for taking down a stringer. David planer, you have to have something that takes down a stringer. Make sure your stringer stays flush with the foam. David planer is very simple to use, very inexpensive, very effective. When your planer blade is sharp, it's an extremely effective tool. Right? Takes down your stringer very easily. It's great. Tape measure, self-explanatory. Pencils. I like to use graphite pencils for sanding a board, for doing little doodles. Graphite, I think that's what it's called, right? Carbon, graphite.
Yeah.
It's like a sketching pencil.
Is there any type of pen or pencil that won't work for signing your name on the board?
It's not good to use pencils that are too hard of lead. You want soft lead. Especially when you get towards the end, the board is very soft, and if your pencil's too hard, it's just going to gouge the foam and not right in it. You want really soft lead. Very important for signing a board, soft lead. Last thing, last things are soft pads with different grits of sandpaper glued to them with spray adhesive. This is sound insulation used to soundproof rooms. You can order it by big sheets of it on eBay and cut it up to match your sandpaper. Then you use 3M spray adhesive to fix different grits of sandpaper to your pads. So I have like 100 grit, 220 grit, 400 grit for finishing. And I use these as I finish up the board to fine sand the curves.
What's the benefit of having it on the foam instead of just like holding a piece of shit sandpaper or something?
Well, it's very delicate and it flexes really well. It's a lot easier to control. If you're holding it in your hand, you're always going to be putting too much pressure in one area and not enough pressure in another area. This allows you to spread out the force on your hand over the entire sheet and control it really well. And then screens. Metal screens for screening rails. When we turn our rails and blend the top of the rails into the bottom rails for the board, we use screens. 220 screen, 400 finishing screen, we use all that. So all of this stuff, plus the planer, is what you need basically to handshape surfboards. You can get more complicated versions of all of this. You can get 100 different types of hand planers for taking down stringers. You can get crazy fucking Japanese curved hand plane stringer things that cost $100, whatever. I don't know what the fuck that is. But you can get a lot of complicated versions of this. You can get really, really complicated saws. You can get complicated calipers. You can get a crazy 100,000 different kinds of fucking sanding blocks. These are just different versions of the same thing. But it's all something like this you're going to end up using. This is really all you need. None of it is terribly expensive. The planer is by far the most expensive. Our process, we have our blank foiled, meaning we've removed most of the thickness from it. We're going to draw our template on the bottom of the board, which is our outline. Use the template to make the outline of our surfboard. We always draw our outline on the bottom of the board. That's because the bottom of the board is the most accurate representation of the measurement of your board. If you measure the deck and measure the bottom, there will be different lengths. Because your curve, you have to take into account the curve, and the curvature of the bottom makes the bottom longer, the way it's curved, the way the rocker works. So we do our template on the bottom to take advantage of the full length of the board and to really use that curve. Okay.
So the 7.6 is measured from bottom point to bottom point, not just top to bottom, if you were to measure that.
Of a finished board?
No finished board.
A finished board, you measure just nose to tail.
Okay, so it is
that. Yeah, either way. Once it's
Yeah.
finished, I mean, usually we measure the bottom when we measure the board. Usually. But if you stand it up, it's probably about 7.6. Yeah.
Just random questions. There's a very popular model out right now of a shortboard called Album Twinston. We had two of them, and then we had another different brand with a twin pin, and we measured ours, and it was true to its size. And we measured the Album Twinston, and they were like, it was like a 6.0, and it measured like 6.2, and our 5.10 measured like 5.11. We're like 5.12.
That's pretty common. Typically for like dimensions written on boards to differ from the actual size of the boards. I have shaped boards, honestly, that I thought were like 7.2, and then I finished and I had it at home and I was looking at it, I was like next to a 6, I was like, it's the same height as my 6.10. It's not 7.2,
Okay.
but I swear to God, the whole time I was shaping the 7.2. I don't know. People get really hung up on the lengths of boards too. Like people are like, do I want a 6.4, a 6.6? And I'm like, I don't know, pick a number you like. Pick 6.7, it doesn't really matter. Like within a certain range, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like
an inch here or there,
it doesn't matter.
it's in the shaper's discretion.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, kid. So these are templates. I'll give you two different types of templates we have here. This is a full-size template, which we're going to use for this board. Full size meaning outline is half the board. You flip it on the other side of the stringer. The outline is the other half of the board. Nose to tail. Full size. Half and half, right? Boom. The other kind of a template, which is awesome, which I have a lot of, are spin templates. Spin templates are much more portable. They are literally half the size, at least, of a full-size template, and they contain the same amount of data, one might say. So you have a spin template, you have your nose curve, right? Nose, spin template, nose to middle, middle to tail. So you have half the board on either side, and you spin it or flip it to connect the lines, right? So I'll start up here with my nose curve, and I'll be like nose to middle, And then I'll be like, boop, 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 come down here, middle of the tail. And I've got half the board on each side of the template.
Genius.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So if you need smaller templates, or you have boards that are over 8 feet, because masonite, this template's cut out of masonite, it only goes up to like 8 feet in length. So once you get templates for like boards that are like 9.6, 10.0, a lot of times they're spin templates because you can't fit it all into this.
And why wouldn't they just, because I've only seen templates that are half like this, flip templates, how come they don't just make it a full template?
You can.
And just
You
trace
can.
the whole thing at once?
Some people, because it's huge, it's so cumbersome.
Got it.
I mean,
Just a size.
essentially you're having a bunch of wooden floppy surfboards at that point. It's the full thing,
Got it.
and it's just size. Also with these, spin templates are great because you can modify the dimensions of a board really easily. So for example, with this, I can't really modify the dimensions much. I can like, if I wanted it 20 1/4, I could push this in a little more, but it's also going to be changing my nose and tail. This, I can say, oh, I want my nose at 15, and I'll angle this so it hits 15. But then I want my wide point a little bit more in, so I can adjust it really easily. I can hit any amount of range of numbers with this
So you can
curve.
basically plot an arc and
Yeah, and then I can just connect it down here. It's a lot easier to change dimensions.
got it.
So this came from a 7.4, but I could use this to make anything from like a 7.4 down to like a 6.8 probably. Really.
Sweet.
It's pretty cool. So I have a lot of these spin templates that I've made from lots of boards. Templates are super important, especially for handshaping. Like your template library is kind of a very sacred, special thing because it takes a lot of time to make them and make good ones. And you cannot make good surfboards without good templates. Like you literally have to have a library of curves. And if you have a good library of curves, you can combine them to make like infinite types of surfboards. It's pretty amazing. Woo! Okay. So, here, pull this off real quick. I'm gonna grab my my square. Side is, since this is a 710 blank, we're gonna be cutting off. Actually, no, I should say it's measure it. It's actually not 710. Measure it, you'll see how long.
Let's see.
how long it is.
7-11 is
Yeah, so it's 711 and a half. It's not even 710.
yeah.
So we're going to be cutting off about 5.5 inches of blank to make a 7.6. So what we have to decide first is, okay, where am I going to cut off my 5.5 inches? You know, if I put my template all the way at the tail, that means I'm cutting off 5.5 inches of nose rocker. If I put my template all the way to the nose, I'm cutting off 5.5 inches of tail rocker, right? Which I don't really want to do. So my idea for a board like this, this type of board, I would like to center my outline right in the middle of the blank. So I keep some of my nose rocker, most of my tail rocker. It has a nice low rocker, but I don't want it especially like flat in the tail or flat in the nose. Okay?
Got it.
So what I'll do is, I'm gonna take 2 inches off the tail. Okay? So I'm gonna make a mark 2 inches up here. And I'm going to make a mark. Now let's drag this up here. Okay. And we're going to drag it up to what, 7.8?
Yep, that makes sense because that's too much.
Yeah. So I'm going to mark it at 7.8. And then between those two marks is my 7.6 circle.
Got
Right?
it.
Pretty cool. So wait, almost, not quite.
Not quite.
Not quite.
Jumping the gun.
So close, bro. Yeah. I'm just going to mark off the end. I'm just going to draw lines for the end and beginning of my board. So I have them. I have reference points.
Can we make this a true egg rounded kind of pen?
Yeah, it's going to be a rounded.
Sweet.
A little rounded pin nose. 12 inches from down from the nose. Tail. It's going to get cut off. It's going to get 12 inches up from the tail. Okay. And
what's the 12 inches for?
so when we measure the nose and tail width of a board, we always measure 12 inches up from the tail and 12 inches down from the
Okay.
nose. So
like
if someone
the
says
longboards that
my
have all the fins on it.
Yeah.
and stuff.
so if someone says, oh, my board has a 15-inch tail, what they mean is 12 inches up from the tail, the board is 15 inches wide. So we have board down similarly down from the nose is a 16-inch nose, whatever.
Now it's simple.
Yeah, no, almost. We're gonna do our wide point. So we're gonna mark our wide point. This board is a 7.6, okay, which means it is 90 inches long, right? It's 90 inches long, which means the exact middle of the board would be 45 inches, okay? But our board has a wide point 3 inches up from center. So this template, the wide point's a little bit up, a little bit above center, which I love. 3 inches up. So instead of going down to 45 for our wide point, we're going to go down to 42, which is 3 inches above the middle of the board. And that's where we're going to mark our wide point.
And what's the benefit of having a midpoint center versus front versus back?
Sure. So a wide point up keeps a little more width and volume and mass underneath your chest for paddling. Gives you a board that really, really paddles excellent, and especially in bigger waves, that's a really good thing. Gives you a lot of stability up front. A board that has usually short boards, performance boards, are going to have a wide point that's more middle or back. When you have a wide point in the back, for example, such as say like a pig longboard or transition, a B-bulge, or like a transition era spoon, that young board, like, right? You have these boards that have wide points back, and that reduces the swing weight in the front. So you take a lot of the mass out of the front, put it in the back. So when you're up and riding, you have a really low volume, narrow nose, which is really easy to swing around and really maneuverable. So all of a sudden, these guys got on the shortboard revolution era, the beginning of that, these guys got on these boards that had wide point back, and all of a sudden they could like steer and maneuver these things that are half the size of longboards, and they had all this maneuverability that never existed before. Because they chopped the boards in half, moved the wide point, made something totally revolutionary. Wide point center is a pretty neutral, more performance-y typically used shape. Very neutral, easy to steer off the back foot oriented. A single fin where you're kind of more concerned with trim and flow and glide. I like the wide point up here because then you have enough volume where you can do that, like take a step forward, stand in the middle of the board and trim really well, and kind of like maneuver the board from the center also. But then if you want to do more carvy arcing turns, you can get your back foot over the fin and fucking carve. This is not like a super wide point up board, like a lot of like the pipeline boards or like serious like tube riding boards in the 70s had wide point way up, right? Because literally all that board wanted to do was get in, set a line, and fly fast. And just get the fuck out, like just make the exit, right? So you put the wide point way up, all that mass is forward, you jump up, crouch, and just go. They're not really boards that are made to be like carved a lot off the back foot. They're just like speed, down the line, trim, go as fast as you can.
This is pretty close to center.
Yeah, this is just a little bit above center.
Okay.
So you get
Balance.
it's very neutral, yeah. So I'm gonna mark our wide point at 21. Just so I know I'm hitting it with my template, because I don't always trust templates. What do I trust? I don't know. I trust how it looks and how it feels. I trust how it looks and how it feels. That's what I trust. I trust how it feels. Okay. Put it order now.
Alright, now let's template.
Yeah, now bring the template up.
Alright.
Okay.
And do you line this up with the middle of the stringer, edge of the stringer? Doesn't really matter.
Well, we're gonna see where our wide point hits, and that will determine kind of how we do it. So, I'm looking at it, I'm seeing, okay, I'm gonna hit 21 and a half. I'm gonna push this over a little bit.
Oh, and you have the midpoint marked on your template too.
Yeah. So the middle marks. I'm just gonna push that in so it hits where I want it to hit. It's gonna hit there where I want it to hit, right? Let's get a picture of something real quick. So I just made this. checking some shit. That's good. I'm actually like kind of sadistic. I really like making
So we've, I had to make one of these for a surfboard bags we do.
Oh, okay.
It's called a fabric pattern. It took me for fucking ever, man. It, like, I was like, draw straight on there and then like every 8 inches go out by this much. That was a pain.
It can be. It can be a pain, and they can be at the beginning. They can be hard to make. But once you get the hang of making templates, it's pretty chill. Okay, so we're going to now. We have our template lined up where we want it. Okay. Have it lined up, so we're going to hit our midpoint, 21.5. And now I'm going to go ahead and draw outline. Take your pencil. Keep it on the outside of the template. Keep your pencil straight up and down. You don't want your pencil at an angle one way or the other. Just want it straight up and down, perpendicular with your curve. Surfboard. Right? A curve.
He's like, yeah, that's a fucking board. That's what I like.
Nice,
man.
right?
I see the shade coming to
From
life.
it. Okay, cool.
So you lined it up straight to the end of the other side of the string. Right?
Yeah, so now what I wanted to do is hit, right? I wanted to hit, match up my other line, right? Yeah, exactly. Like that. So I line it up so I'm going to hit my midpoint there also, right? Yeah, and the cool thing about having a full-size template like this is, you don't have to take as many measurements. It's going to hit. It's going to be the same. Pretty much. I mean, honestly, sometimes I obsessively measure my outlines like every 10 inches to make sure it's fucking the same on both sides. But, like Mark Andrini said once, you generally try to make the board symmetrical on both sides, but even if it's not, it'll still work fine. It's totally okay.
Sounds like you got lazy.
And it's very true. Well, dude,
There's some boards.
There's some 10,000. Yeah, there's some truth to that. I mean, it's not laziness, but at a certain point in handshaping, you can't fix every single mistake.
Yeah.
Like, if sometimes you realize your board's a little bit off on one side, and you're like, you know what? It's okay. The airbrushing for a while. I really like airbrush. But I might get out of it soon. I don't know. Is it done? Am I done with airbrushing? I don't know. My opinion changes all the time. It looks like a surfboard, doesn't it?
I see it.
That's pretty.
I see it.
Yeah, it's really nice.
First time on that template.
Yeah, I just made it this morning.
Love it.
I mean, I just
Breaking in your
sanded
template,
it this
yeah.
morning. Yeah. Yeah, let's try. You just want to make sure it flows, make sure there's not any egregious like flat spots or dips in it. You know, that looks like a nice curve.
Looks symmetrical.
Yeah, it looks roughly symmetrical. Now we're going to cut it out.
Sweet.
Just make sure your saw is straight up and down,
Okay. None of this.
not at an angle.
Okay.
You do not want this. You want to keep your rail straight 90 degrees as much as possible, so when you're cutting your rail band, you have a nice surface to start with.
Got it.
If you end up with your saw at an angle, your rails are cut at an angle, it's going to be really hard to get a proper rail
Got it.
at the end. Okay? So, straight up and down. Cut the nose and the tail off first. Chop, chop, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to cut the nose off because I'm going to cut the nose off this fucking thing. Right? Well, can we make it longer? Too late. This is the end.
Are you trying to leave like a 16th inch of space or anything, or are you trying to go directly on the line?
So, I will tell you. Never touch your line. Ever.
Got it.
Ever. Do not touch it with the saw, do not touch it with the planer, do not touch it with the block, never touch your line. Your line is your outline. If you start touching your line, you're going into your outline and you are making your board asymmetrical, okay? At the very, very end, the only time we will touch our line is finally at the end when we turn our rails and we blend the rails together. Literally the last step of shaping, we will blend our outline together. Other than that, we do not touch the line. We get as close as we can to the line without touching. We'll cut our outline. You want to leave yourself probably at least like 1/8 of an inch while you're cutting to get close to the line, but then we're going to true up the outline with the planer and a block. Okay. So we cut. I like to keep my arm kind of straight out so I can see the angle of the saw. Check it out. Boom, and I kind of do it.
So is that technique to basically ensure that it stays vertical?
Yes. Yep. All right. That technique is to make sure it stays up and down. Because now you can look down the rail line, you know, it's pretty straight. It's not super curved. It's pretty nice 90-degree angle. Don't fuck it up.
I know, man.
Don't fuck it
Oh, I
up.
was like this. Were you going?
Are you righty or lefty? I would start down here.
Yeah, you go this way, right?
Yeah.
Alright.
We're gonna know which rail works better. Yeah,
Well,
this is
I
about
only-
as close as you
I
want to
only
get to the
go
line.
left, so.
Okay.
Oh, I should have had you done that.
Should have.
Ah, man.
Okay, if you don't worry about getting too close, because I'm gonna come along with a planer also. There you go.
Eyes, it's fucking horrible. But this I can direct away from me, so it's a lot more tolerable. And I am trying to get as close to the line as I can without touching it. Okay? And the planer is great because it makes all this level. It automatically like gets rid of any like bumps and flat spots while I'm using it. It's really cool.
I'm just trying to get right up to the line, but not touch the line.
It has to be equidistant on the skin all the way across, right?
Yeah, as equidistant as I can. So when in doubt, stop standing.
Okay.
Do not get. It is much better for you to be off the line than it is for you to be too close to the line. Okay? So that's as close as you want to get to the line.
Alright, okay, got it.
And then I just kind of go along this way. And if it's easier for you to work with the board flat, I like doing it that way too.
This is probably the way.
Cool.
Leave me in. Rock and roll, brother.
Alright, see you in a few hours. Yeah, try as much as you can.
Long single ones.
Yeah,
like
long
inside.
passes, don't
Okay.
scrub too much in one place.
Okay.
Just try to keep moving in a smooth motion. Everyone thinks like, oh, it's easy, it's just using a handsaw. I'm like, you'd be amazed how many people are like, cannot cut the fucking saw through the bone and get the tail off. They're just like, I can't, I don't know how to do it. I'm like, you have to know how to saw something. It's just a saw, it's foam.
I am surprised how fast that 40 grit takes it now, though.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Super quick.
So what we're gonna do now, yeah, it takes down really fast. What we're gonna do now is just flip it on its side so we can finish it up.